it was a mistake as long as the military-industrial complex, the American-Israeli lobby, and big business, they all contribute heavily to the politicians' campaigns, and these same outfits advertise in the media, and they want us in Iraq. So until they're ready to get us out of there, I'm afraid we're going to be there, and it doesn't much matter what we think anymore.
Thank you, caller. A lot of ground to cover.
No, it's not a question. I'd take it as a statement. Now we know what she thinks. We also know how she thinks.
George Sim Johnston in the National Review said this about the missionary position. Mr. Hitchens is made uneasy by the thought that somebody somewhere is doing a good deed motivated by personal charity rather than statist ideology. Mother Teresa's Roman Catholicism also bothers him because it's obscurantist and retrograde, unlike, say, Marxism in the 1990s.
Well, that she was doing a good deed for the wrong reasons. I don't think her work in Calcutta was good. She raised an enormous amount of money around the world from people like he, who naively thought that the money was going to give breakfast to starving children or medicine to people in need. And she used all the money to build up this, on her own confession, on her own admission, convents in her own name. That's where most of the money went. She had a hospice for the dying where a few nuns not trained in medicine of any kind were found occasionally with the odd syringe which they were washing in cold water. It was a place purely for death, a house of death, and based on a cult of death too. As I've told you before, she preached poverty was a good thing. She did her best to make sure there was a lot of it by arguing that women shouldn't be allowed to have contraception, shouldn't be allowed to be divorced from abusive husbands. She preached the most fanatical form of Catholicism, a much more dogmatic one than the Church itself professes. And as I've just said, or said in reply to an earlier question, this fanaticism seems to have been an attempt to overcompensate for the fact that she couldn't, in private, believe any of the central postulates of the religion. So really, it's a pretty shabby career, and it's not my problem, of course. But if I were a religious person, I wouldn't choose her as the exemplary figure of my faith, because it's too easy, and anyone who can read my book can find out how easy it is to show that none of the things popularly believed about her are true, whereas a lot of very unpleasant facts that have never been denied, her taking of money, for example, from the Duvalier family dictatorship in Haiti, where I think everyone would agree the poor of the world had one of the worst deals they've ever had, stolen money in effect, her shabby dealings with Charles Keating of the Lincoln Savings and Loan, her refusal to return stolen money from him, even when the courts in America asked for it back, or again on behalf of the poor from whom it had been robbed. All of this is all true and can be proved. The people who say she did all this because she felt she had a light from Jesus and so on are saying what they cannot prove, and is very probably in any case not true.
What do you think that reviewer meant about Marxism? Why do you think he brought that?
I think that's a dig at your humble servant.
Why?
I think it's intended as a dig at your humble servant, I mean to say. Well, of course, if you have a background as a Marxist, as I do, if you attack someone else's ideology as outmoded or primitive, then you are living in some extent a glass house.
Email, Steve Finnefrock, Hollywood Conservative Forum. Look, as I might, it's yet to be found that you've explicitly renounced your once famous adoration for communism and its adherents. Your recent excellence in explicating the Iraqi war is commendable, but we still await an explicit renunciation of communism, including the beloved Uncle Ho Chi Minh, the et al.
It was the natural outcome for the struggle of the Vietnamese to expel the Japanese and unify their country. Wouldn't have been done by any other group.
Talked about this a little earlier, but just in case viewers are just tuning in, Doug Tarnopol emails, how do you explain your about face? From courageous left-winger to obsequious neocon. P.S. In case you reach for the Orwell mantle in your answer, I've read Orwell, I've appreciated George Orwell, and you, sir, are no George Orwell.
Well, then he would know that every time the mantle questions come up, that I've said, don't be stupid. I mean, listen, George, well, for one thing, I'm more than 10 years older than Orwell was when he died. And I've made a pretty good living out of journalism. Orwell was always broke, but never sold out on a point. Orwell was a volunteer soldier in Spain, took a bullet in the throat. I haven't been as courageous as that. I've never had to sacrifice much to censorship or poverty or oppression. And I don't write as well either. And I can't write novels at all. So the mantle thing is simply a sneer, as actually, come to think, it was the rest of the question.
You said that you've made a good living as a writer. Are you wealthy?
No, I'm not, but I get paid more than I need to pay the bills. It took a long time to get stopping living from check to check. But I mean, I didn't mind that either, because I'm doing the only thing I know how to do. So it isn't as if I could have done something else for a living. There's nothing else I'm fit to do.
Besides your books, you also write for Vanity.
But I mean, you know, my current book is on the bestseller list, so I'll see some money from that.
Besides your books, you write for Vanity Fair?
Yeah.
On a contractual basis? Anyone else?
I contributed an essay on books to the Atlantic Monthly. Not absolutely every month. I think about 10 months a year, fairly regularly anyway. That's a lovely job.
What's your relationship with Graydon Carter?
Well, Graydon and I were friends before he became editor of Vanity Fair. And I used to write for him a little when he was at the New York Observer. And we've been very tight for a long time. We have quite similar tastes in literature, not in politics. I mean, again, P.G. Wodehouse, Evelyn Waugh, things like that. We always have some chat about that whenever we meet. He's got a better dress sense than I have. He's always trying to get me to put on a tie and generally smarten myself up. And he very nicely, he asked me to come and write for him the first day I think he was appointed. So I've been doing it now since, gosh, 92. It's going to be 15 years quite soon, now I think about it.
What's your relationship with The Nation currently?
I simply don't have one. I still have some friends there, but I mean, after doing a column for almost, excuse me, almost exactly 20 years, called Minority Report, I got to the stage where I'd gone well beyond diminishing returns. I just was essentially through with the mentality that makes the United States the author of its own troubles in the matter of the war with jihadism. I have no patience with that mentality of any kind anymore.
Is Katrina vanden Heuvel a friend of yours?
Yes, as long as she says so. There's no reason why we shouldn't consider ourselves friends. I haven't seen her for a bit.
This is from your The Nation column in October 8th, 2001. The bombers of Manhattan represent fascism with an Islamic face, and there's no point in any euphemism about it. What they abominate about the West, to put it in a phrase, is not what Western liberals don't like and can't defend about their own system, but what they do like about it and must defend. It's emancipated women, it's scientific inquiry, it's separation of religion from the state. Loose talk about chickens coming home to roost is the moral equivalent of the hateful garbage emitted by Falwell and Robertson, and exhibits about the same intellectual content.
Yes, that was the week when the ridiculous, now departed Jerry Falwell, and the even more repellent Pat Robertson, two complete rogues who just prove what you can get away with in this country if you can get yourself called reverend, had gone on the air while the cell phones were still bleeping under the rug, and you could still smell the stench of it all in downtown New York, to smugly say, well, what you get dying in the United States. I couldn't believe that was straight business. But that was the person of the Christian right, and I think it should be forgotten. As if to emulate